Oh boy. Internet kerfuffles already. Yeah, I love it. Internet kerfuffles already. Hey guys, it's Sunday night, and you know what that time is? Yeah, it's time for the Snark Lounge. Hey guys, I'm Jimmy, aka SnarkyGuy, and today, as Dr. Death so enunciatedly stated, yeah, I guess we're gonna get a little political today. It's one of those times. So, true story. I just quoted myself. Here you go. So, yep, yeah, that's true. Internet kerfuffle. It seems to work out the way. Can everybody hear me okay? Am I clear? Am I coming in good? So we'll see. Hopefully. Somebody give me a shout in the comments. Make sure that you can hear me and I can hear you. Well, I can't hear you, but you know, if I could hear you. True story. So I took last week off. I went ahead and got the third jab, number 3, and that was a little bad. I ended up sleeping until like 4 p.m. after I got the jab. That was always fun. So, yeah. But hearing you loud and clear, Bowen says, great. I'm glad to hear that. Okay. Well, guys, today we are going to be talking, as you know, about the whole kerfuffle. Let me just throw that up there. It's not really an internet kerfuffle, but it is a kerfuffle nonetheless, involving the whole thing with Ukraine. Yes. Hey, John is in the audience. How you doing, my friend? Good to see you. Walkabout Roho, the man behind the Roho rope, is in the audience. There you go. Oh, yes. Love the Naruto shirt, Snarky. Thank you. Ichi Ramen Raku. Thank you. Put it on myself. True story. So, yeah, the old third dose, man. No, I didn't get Sinovac. Actually, I got the Sinopharm. They offer 2 options. Lianga in China, they have the Sinovac and the Sinopharm, which I understand is a little more potent than the Sinovac. But anyway, I got that, and I didn't really feel anything the night I got it. It was just kind of like, yeah, you know, cool, whatever, you know, in the arm. And they have a great system set up. I got to tell you, wonderful system set up. You register online, you know, with your phone, and you go there and fill out a couple of questionnaires. You know, are you dead? Have you been infected before? Have you been in and out of the country? Yada yada yada. And then you go for it. And so yeah, they match you up a little barcode, make sure you're getting the same thing, because whatever you got for the first 2 doses, that's what you get for the third. Yeah. So yeah, it was pretty good. Bowen said he got the old BioNTech. Yeah, my wife did too. She got that same one in Hong Kong. True story. So yeah, listen, I want to make it very clear right up front. The goal of this live stream, that's the benefit of actually recording on material when you get those little tongue tied, your tongue up, and you don't muck it up on camera. Anyway, the goal of this live stream is not to complain about the situation. It's to understand it and perhaps even ask the more important question, what can we do? Right? Because whatever side you sit on this thing, people getting hurt and possibly killed is no laughing matter. And it's not something that I think we should just sit on the fence about. So, yeah. Yeah, there you go. Again, whatever way you want to sit on the fence, you definitely support the people. True story. I saw something interesting recently. They were saying, I can't believe we're bringing back all the classics from my childhood. You know, Picard, Luke Skywalker, Ghostbusters, the Soviet Union. Yeah. So, hey, Lucy, how you doing? Long time no see. It is good to see you. All right. Listen, I am going to put a link in the comments here. If you want to support, jump in. I can't guarantee that I'm going to be able to get every one of you on screen. Never guarantee, but definitely want to give that option. And we'll see if you guys have the opportunity to voice in on this matter. Hey, Snarky, cool beard. Thank you. Grew it myself. True story. So yeah. But let's get into this here. This past week, as you guys know, the Vlad the Impaler, otherwise known as Vladimir Putin, ordered the attack of Ukraine from Russia. Dun dun dun. And unless you've been living under a rock somewhere, you know that unfortunately what's been going on. So what's been happening? For those of you who have been under a rock, I'm going to give you guys just kind of a very brief rundown of this. This past week, they attacked Ukraine, and this is not anything new. This has been a kind of an ongoing battle for the past 8 years. Back when Russia annexed the Crimean Peninsula, Crimea. I'm probably mispronouncing that, so I'm glad someone's talking about this. Yes, Lucy, come on the show, Lucy. Give me your opinion. I'd love to hear it. Definitely. So, yeah. As with you, Georgia, back years back, this is kind of a little bit of a head scratcher. What's going on? So, yeah, let's talk about this. So what is the final goal here? There's been a lot of people that are speculating what is the final goal of Russia taking over. First of all, you guys know, and I don't have a map I can put up. Look it up on Google if you like. But Ukraine is roughly bulbous shaped and has a little bit of underneath there. If someone just put up the map of Ukraine without actually labeling it, you might actually be forgiven for thinking it looks roughly China shaped, and that's fine. But the little bit of part on the bottom there is called Crimea. It's basically almost an island, very narrowly joined to the mainland, and that has a lot of natural gas deposits. In fact, Russia. Going back, and we're going to be all over on this tonight because again, it's kind of one of those topics where you can't discuss one thing without discussing another. It happens. So yes, let's put on a little more ominous light. Bam. Wait, didn't it work? Bam. Huh? Interesting. My remote not working. Okay, I guess we're gonna stick with green tonight. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So Russia gets about 30% of their total GDP, their total money, their entire piggy bank is coming from oil and natural gas. So a lot of people are speculating that this may be a move to retain some of that cash by denying another player a chance to compete with them in the natural gas and oil industry. As a matter of fact, there's been a lot of natural gas that's been found in Ukraine, but they lack the capital to extract and or produce it in any sufficient quantities. In and around the Crimea part of Russia, there's been a lot of natural gas out in the water there. And when Russia took over or redeemed, depending on your point of view, Crimea, they got access to all of that. So, all right, I'm gonna bring guys in maybe one at a time here to discuss this. Very briefly, Bowen, you're on.
Hey, what's up?
Your thoughts on this, my friend? Are you there?
Yep, always support the underdog, man.
Okay, your internet's kind of. Oh, can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you. What's up?
Okay, I can see your forehead. You might scoot back a little bit so we can see a little more than just your forehead. So, What's your thoughts on this, my friend?
Well, I mean, I always support the underdog, you know.
Okay, you're breaking up real bad there. I hope everyone can hear you. So, okay,
I always support the underdog.
Can you hear me? Oh, there we go.
I can hear.
You support the underdog. Okay. So what's your thoughts on the underdog? Who's the underdog here?
Of course, Ukraine.
Okay. What and why is that?
Putin always gets his way. Look. In 2016, Putin helped Trump win, right? He wanted Trump to win, so Trump won.
Okay.
You know,
so how does that how do we get from there to here? How does that affect us now?
He seems to get whatever he wants.
Okay. So that's true. I mean, the guy has been working some wizardry and has managed to stay in office for a pretty ripe long time. So Lucy says natural gas started off because of Bitcoin. That's true. Bitcoin and Ethereum, for those of you who don't know, is there's a very close relationship there. True story. So, all right. So Putin's been in office. So how does that affect? Why do you think he's done this, or why do you think the situation has come to pass?
Well, I mean, if you go on Twitter, right, there's a hashtag called Putin Hitler.
Okay.
And Adolf Putin. So, you know, he's trying to be the 21st century Hitler, I think.
Okay. Well, but I mean, a lot of people called Trump Hitler, and a lot of people are calling Uncle Joe Hitler too. So that's just rhetoric. I mean, why do you think we're at right now with Ukraine?
Well, because Putin didn't get his way with Trump. Trump lost the election, so he's now going after little people.
Okay. So
he has to take his frustration out somewhere.
Okay. And Wu Jiao in the audience, he says, wrong. So Wu Jiao, follow my link. I put a link in the thing. Get on here. Tell me your opinion. I want to hear it. So you think because Trump lost the election that's why Putin is going after Ukraine?
Yeah, well, he's going. I mean, he didn't get what he wanted in one area, right? So he's now going after other people.
Okay, but that's Trump. That's not Putin. I mean, unless
Putin
and Trump are the same person, which
Putin wanted Trump to win.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. So you know, he didn't get his way, so he has to go after someone else.
Okay, I gotcha. All right. Well, all right. It's that is a possibility, I suppose. I mean, there's a lot of other factors involved in there. So Wujiao says on February 9th, Zelensky says he needs nuclear weapons. Now we're going to get to those nuclear weapons later. We're going to talk about that. And he says
Putin has nuclear weapons, not Ukraine.
So NATO caused this whole thing. Yeah, NATO is a big proponent in this, definitely. So, but yeah, so there's been a lot of natural gas found in Russia, and of course, during the old Soviet Union days, they had to get the natural gas through Ukraine in order to sell it. And of course, now that Ukraine is a separate country, Russia has to pay to use this pipeline to move the natural gas in order to sell it. However, they've actually been in the process of building alternative pipelines. Did you hear about that?
Yeah.
And
it's always about the oil.
Yeah. Supposedly they're going to be finished with that in 2025 and thus deny Ukraine the transport tax. So if we can take that off the table, what is the whole thing with the war? Window into Micro World. Now there's a name. He says, I disagree with Bowen's idea. Okay.
Okay. Well, what is his idea or her idea?
That's a good question. What is your idea? Tell us. I want to hear this. I want to see if we can get some multiple points of view on this and go from here. In the interim, we've had a lot of breakaway countries, if you will, new countries, somewhere in the mix. There's and I'm probably going to do a terrible job pronouncing this. Luhansk, hence the self-styled Luhansk People's Republic, or LNR, and Donetsk, otherwise known as the Donetsk People's Republic, DNR, have declared themselves new and independent countries recognized by nobody but Russia. Why is that, man? Any idea?
The world is going crazy. You know, before they said that California could be its own country and Texas could be its own country. So I don't know anything about that.
Well, California probably could. They've got the economy for it. And Texas technically has an escape clause from the U.S. But that being that, I don't see how that definitely factors in. So anyway, so Ujiao says, your guest is blinded by Western MSM. Okay. So
what does he watch? Fox News or CGTN?
Well, you know, I think news should be attained from a lot of different sources. Now, personally, I get my sources from a lot of different areas. John says maybe Putin is looking for the weapons of mass destruction. Nice. Nice little throwback to Bush Jr. there.
Saddam Hussein.
So, in Munich, when Zelensky says he needs to use weapons, how many people stood up and said, hey, wait a minute, that's not a good idea? Nobody. So we're going to get into that in actually a Richard Branson article a little later about this. But as far as those countries are concerned, the Russian-backed republics, of South Ossetia and Abkhazia in Georgia, which for all intents and purposes didn't actually become a part of Russia, this kind of echoes the whole Georgian war in a lot of ways. So you saw my idea. You will have my idea once it's Ukraine. Yes. And here is the crux right there. Window in the micro world. A lot of people are going to be taking this whole wait and watch. We're going to see what happens. And
that's all you can do.
The terrible part about this is that the only ones that are really suffering now are the people. The people in that. So, Bowen, we're going to move on. Do you have any other points to make? I'm going to clear you out and make room for someone else to come in here.
All right. Yeah. Cool. I'll do what I always do. Pop back to the general audience. Go ahead.
Awesome, man. Good to seeing you, man. So, all right. So, anyway, going back to the Georgian War, if anybody remembers that, this has a lot of similar mojo, similar vibes there. So the Ukrainian, again, I don't want to call it invasion. Everyone's got their own points of view on this. Has been claimed as a peacekeeping force. That Russia claimed they were going in for peacekeeping for the emerging republics, when in fact it was a land grab, or a lot of people say it was a land grab, such as the Crimean Peninsula in 2014. Anyway, but I want to discuss a couple of terms here. There is de facto and de jure. These are some really funky French words that we still use, oddly enough, to describe and identify countries in the world. De facto describes a situation that's existing in reality, but it's not legally recognized, where de jure describes something that is legally is legal regardless whether it's actually happening or not. Now, I want to let you guys make your own points of view on what's happening there. So, yep. So, hey, Snarky, you dropped me out. Cool. Back. Yes, I did. Ha. So, anyway, yeah, I want to make room for other people to come in. So I got a couple of guests that are going to be coming in here in a little bit. Knock on wood. We'll see who there's. So anyway, so let's go back to that de facto and de jure. Is this a de facto countries, these two, the DNR and LNR that have formed up, or are they de facto countries, de jure countries? I want you to think about that. So you should be named Wu Mao. You play semantics. Everybody plays semantics. True story. Anyway, I want to talk about a Richard Branson article. Richard Branson, for those of you who are not familiar with him, is kind of an interesting guy. He's the CEO of Virgin Airlines, technically a knight, and smart cookie. He's the wild child of the aviation industry, CEO of Virgin Airlines. He wrote an article recently that I thought was kind of interesting called "Defending the Rule of Law." So, what is this? If the U.S. is doing this, it would be called Operation Ukraine. Probably would be. Yes. He's referring to the defending Iraqi freedom, which is happened after Operation Desert Storm and Operation Desert Shield way back in the day. True. So I listened to Scott Ritter, a U.S. weapons expert, not familiar with him. So, Wujiao, follow the link. Come on in. Talk to us. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to throw that link up in here again, because I want to hear what a couple other people say. Later on, I got a couple of guests that are going to be coming into a couple of big guests, maybe. We'll see. Going to be coming in to talk about this. So anyway, the Richard Branson article. He was talking about in this article called Defending the Rule of Law, referring to a 1994 Budapest Memorandum. Russia actually signed the 1994 Budapest Memorandum. Basically, it was a commitment to respect independence and the sovereignty of Ukraine. As part and parcel of this memorandum, Ukraine signed a treaty of non-proliferation. That's a tough word. Proliferation basically was where they flushed their nukes. They got rid of all their nukes. So those people are talking about nukes. Ukraine actually had nukes, and they said, bye-bye nukes. It's not a terrible idea, although they say that peace is the art of diplomacy by saying nice doggy where you look for a big stick. So it is what it is. Michael said, American troops should be in Ukraine instead of watching the show. Yeah, here's the problem. We start putting boots on the ground, and then we get a shooting war between a lot of different countries. And that's not good for anybody. We should be trying to resolve these things diplomatically instead of going in, shooting first, shooting later, then shooting anything else that moves and seeing what is left. Shooting war is never a good idea. And it being 2022, I'm always surprised a little bit that a lot of places have resolved this. In any case, let's go back to that Richard Branson article. He is describing, and let me see if I can get a copy of that to put up here. So, Snarky, the subject's too volatile. Projects as Putin woke up and decided to attack. Yeah, I don't think he did wake up, and we're going to talk about that more as we go on here. But I want to see if I can get a copy of that article here. I should have had that ready to go, but like I said, we're kind of all over the place today. So here we go. Oop, wrong browser. Let's see. Can I open it? And I had this up earlier. I apologize, guys. So America stops need to being the world police. Yeah, that's true. I agree. So, whoops, we looked everywhere. What? Apparently that article is not there anymore. Are you kidding me? I just looked at that earlier. Hang on. Let me just bring that up here in another browser and see if that actually comes up. We're moving very slow because the internet is moving slow. All right. All right. Apparently that article is, oh, wait a minute. I know why. VPN is off. What do you bet if that's it? It probably requires a VPN. Let's try it again. Let's try it again. No. Dead article. Okay. Well, it's a good thing I read it when I did. It's not coming up. All right, we'll move on. So, have you blocked links? No, I haven't. I actually looked at it earlier. So, Thomas says it's kind of like the Cuban Missile Crisis with our Monroe Doctrine. For those of you who are not familiar with the Monroe Doctrine, President Monroe established an invisible barrier around North and South America and said anything that happens here we'll mess with, and anything that doesn't, we're just going to leave alone. It's kind of like a de facto rule of neutrality, but didn't actually work out that way. We did not want Russia in our backyard. They definitely don't want us in our backyard, and that is a big part of this. We're going to get to that in a minute, sir. We've been having a lot of jet flights lately, which means they're prepping for deployment. Not good. Not really. So I've had a couple of kerfuffles myself. Here we go. Where the hell is American troops? No, I disagree. Right now, I think the shooting war is like the last thing we need right now. True story. Woojia says, drop the link and see. Okay. Yeah. Let me drop that link in here. So, it didn't work before. I'm going to drop that link in the chat here. If anybody can bring that up, let me know. For whatever, don't you have 5G? Yes, I do. I'm actually on the web here, and I had it on my phone earlier. So, anyway, getting back to that article here again. So, all right, the 1994 Budapest Memorandum was basically saying that the Russia would respect the independence and sovereignty of Ukraine so long as Ukraine gave up its nukes, and they did. Of course, immediately after that, in 2014, there was the annexation of Crimea by Russia, which a lot of people claim is the first major violation of that Budapest Memorandum. A full transparency, guys, there actually was a referendum in Crimea as well, where the people overwhelmingly demanded to join Russia. Now, again, we know we can make numbers say anything and everything we want, so I'm not actually going on that. Anyway, you don't want to read this until much later. There you go. So, in any case, in response, or to the taking of liberation, take your pick, Ukraine blocked the entire water supply to Crimea. Traditionally, the peninsula, almost island of Crimea, gets most of their water supply from Ukraine, but now the reservoir is only 7% full. Not a lot there. So some people are saying this, the military action in Ukraine could be seen as a violation of, people's natural needs for water, whatever. I don't know. Some people are going on about this means something else. A lot of people are going to be saying this is going to be sullying the reputation of Russia either way. It could be argued that this is not only a violation of that memorandum, but a disrespect for the rule of law and the validity of international treaties. Agree with Snarky here. Shooting war will just create an all-out war between the countries, and is most likely what the governments want to happen so they can justify spending trillions on military. Yeah, I think we should be spending a little more on, schools and libraries. in a perfect world. Definitely. I'm not saying we shouldn't be spending some on national defense at all, but sometimes that goes just a little bit crazy. In any case, a lot of people are saying that the invasion could be the second stroke against that memorandum, and again, a disrespectful of the rule of law and the validity of international treaties. But again, people do this all the time. If you don't believe me, I mean, people sign treaties for mutual protection and solidarity every day and then break them. We typically call that marriage and divorce. This is not the same thing. I'm just saying people break agreements all the time. So, hey, creature. So, who is getting wealthiest? That is the great question. Follow the money, they say, and that could be right there where a lot of things are going into this. Who is going to help Ukraine? Seriously, we're going to get to that. We are going to get to that. So, in any case, so exactly. So, do you mean that you should put Putin responsible for the deaths? Well, yeah, it seems to me that this is going about this all wrong way. So, agree with much that Marcus Snarky says. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. In any case, sadly, this is going to be either way you want to spread this is going to create a lot of heartache, distrust, and occasionally you need to eat a lot more cheeseburgers because of all of this. Between countries without binding agreements, there can't be peace. And I think we can all agree peace is a lot better than no peace. Hey, remote's working again. What do you know? Blue. So, in any case, hey, Dr. Death. Yes. All right, there we go. So, some are going to say, and I've heard this argument being made, that had Ukraine held on to the nuclear weapons, that Crimea would still be part of Ukraine and the invasion wouldn't be happening. But then again, a lot of other people are saying just the opposite, that had they held on to them, the things could have been a lot worse. Okay, I don't want to try to look in hindsight too far. So, you tell Russia not to invade Ukraine. Seriously. Well, there we go. A lot of people say this is not an invasion, it's a peacekeeping force. Some people say it's a continuation of an 8-year war, and some people say it's an invasion. Regardless of what you put it right now, we have Russian troops that are in Ukraine cities and calling us in big kerfuffle. Name a single act that a NATO member on the Russian border has performed that has involved a single loss in Russian life. Can't. But then again, I don't know. Agreed. More cheeseburgers is good. True story. Love cheeseburgers. So, with everything that's happened globally in the last few years, this is seriously a perfect storm. True story. I want to welcome on a guest right now. Some of you guys may or may not know him, and he has got a lot to say about this. Let's welcome Lee Barrett in. Hey.
Hey, Snarky, how you doing? Can you hear me?
You know what? I'm doing pretty good, sir. How you doing?
Well, I'll be honest. I've had a rough last 2 or 3 weeks. I'm still on my chemotherapy.
How's that going?
Well, on Tuesday coming, I'm on my 11th out of 12. But up until about week 7, it wasn't too bad, side effect wise. But sort of after week 8, 9, and 10, it's been a bit rough. It's the side effects. I was aware that I was going to get them. But for example, it's like you won't be able to see it on camera, but all your nails go bruised. It's almost as if somebody's hit you on the ends of the fingers with a hammer. So they're very tender and sore. Same on my toes. And then the other side effect is sort of appetite and the feeling of sickness. But it's because over the weeks, the chemical they inject into you, it obviously builds up in your system. So the side effects get worse the longer it goes on. But luckily, as I say, I'm on week 11 out of 12. And hopefully then it'll all be good.
Yeah.
Well,
we're all going to be offering our hopes, prayers, and good vibes on that. Definitely.
I really appreciate that. And then after that, I've got 5 or 6 weeks of radiotherapy. But apparently the only side effects to that is the area feels as though it's got sunburn, but that's pretty much it. So yeah, it's
there There we go. So we were just talking about whether Russia really is an aggressor in this fight. I'm interested to hear your point of view here on what's going on.
Okay, so I think there's a lot of misconception about that. This war, this conflict was started sort of, a few days ago. And my opinion is that although I disagree with the fact that Russia have gone in, I think to a point they were backed into a corner, because if you look at what's been happening for many, many years, and I know you're an American, and sadly I say I think the US have been one of the biggest instigators in this, as the largest power in NATO. I think the NATO alliance agreed the Minsk II agreement, which was basically to sort of pacify Russia, and as they promised many years ago, to stop the encroachment of NATO up to Russia's border. I think this could have been avoided, but I feel as though the USA and Europe have continually poked the bear and kind of backed Russia into a corner.
Okay.
And I think that's my opinion is that's the issue here. Although I don't agree with what Russia have done, I think is wrong. I can also see it from a side that the certain factions within Ukraine have killed many ethnic Russians in the Donbass region over the last many years, and it all goes back to, I think it was 2014 when the government was ousted. And I think, you look since that time, the US have pumped like $5 billion into Ukraine, and a lot of that money has been spent on the wrong kind of thing, I think. So what I would say, I really feel pretty bad about what's happening, and I think we need to encourage both sides, both Russia and Ukraine, to actually have a ceasefire, sit down at the negotiating table with the help of other countries. Maybe China can be, because China have remained pretty neutral in this, as have India. And also I noticed the United Arab Emirates abstained at the Security Council meeting. So maybe, China or India could get involved in that mediation process. I mean, as you know, living in China for a long, long time, Chinese are all about mediation. And I think that's what needs to happen. I think signals that, like the US and Europe are now sending out, where they're going, oh yeah, we're going to send another, $3 billion worth of weapons to Ukraine. I really don't think that is a good idea at all, because it's almost like pouring fuel on the fire.
Well, a lot of people are saying, of course, if Russia stops, there won't be a war, but they say if Ukraine stops, there won't be a Ukraine. So it's kind of a touchy situation. I definitely think they should go to the table, but how do we get from there to the negotiation part? That's the big question.
Absolutely. I think, I think somebody has to mediate and sit in the middle. And I think, Ukraine needs to make some compromises. Russia needs to make certain compromises. And I think if we can stop, if they can stop killing each other during that time, I'm sure, I'm a very strong believer in that. Pretty much every situation in the world, there can be some sort of compromise, because it's just not good when, civilians especially are getting killed. I mean, it's just, there's just no need for that in today's age. There really isn't. I just find it mad.
Yeah. So there's been some people that were claiming that the U.S. had gotten involved with effectively Nazis in there, and then that as a result, some of these white supremacist groups were basically kind of getting involved in eastern Ukraine to the point where Russia had to get involved.
Well, That's exactly, what I've seen. I mean, to be fair, that there are photographs of, US troops training with these neo-Nazi sort of groups. Now, I'm not going to say for 1 minute that the whole of the Ukrainian army are neo-Nazis, but there are a number. There's I think ASOV, there's C14, there's a couple of other groups, and I think where Ukraine have made a mistake, and I think I hasten to say that it seems as though, to me, from what I understand, from what I've read, from what I've observed, and boy, I've learned a lot about this in the last sort of week or so.
Yeah, same here. We kind of do like catch up.
They've kind of been aided and abetted a little bit, even to a point funded from the US and NATO, and I think that's really not good. That is really not good. But it does seem to be that these sort of Nazi units, who, to be fair, seem to be a small part of the Ukrainian army. They have been endorsed by the Ukrainian state, and I think it seems to be, from what I understand, those are the groups that have been causing the most trouble within the eastern Ukraine, the Donetsk regions. And this is what Russia have said they want to clear out. Now, I think the thing is, if Russia do that, or do they go on to capture more of Ukraine? This is what's sort of the unknown at the moment. They said initially they were going to go in just to deal with these areas and take out these neo-Nazis within Ukraine, but it all depends whether they stop there or whether they continue further. So this is all in the balance at the moment, because I think Snarky, a lot of the information we're getting at the moment, you can't rely on. You have. I saw some reports today.
There's been a lot of fake news been going around this, even fake video that's been going out.
Oh, huge amounts. I've seen clips, and as a sort of general observer, you think, oh my God. Then you find this clip was a clip from Gaza or somewhere else, or some military training exercise. You have no doubt. And the danger of social media, I feel, and this is another point, that especially with these sort of platforms now, like TikTok and Douyin, not so much Douyin, because it's a little bit more censored here in China, as you're aware, but certainly on TikTok and even Twitter and that, you get this information and people just retweet it as quick as anything. And it seems that the more sort of gory or the more disgusting or the more bad news it is, the more it's retweeted, and nobody ever bothers to sort of look and say, well, actually, is this real? Nobody stops to think, and I think that's really dangerous.
Yeah. Well, that's what they say the role of the media is, to know their audience and make them mad.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is a really, really dangerous thing. I've noticed today that YouTube have demonetized all the Russian media channels on there, and also I think Twitter are starting to take action to sort of deplatform some of the Russian media, which again I find quite alarming, because I'm sure there is some of it that is propaganda, but come on, the USA are the propaganda masters. You see some of the things that are on kind of Fox News and things like that about China. And I think, to sort of sanction one side and not the other, I guess, it is the way it is, but I feel quite strongly about that kind of thing. It's kind of shutting down one side to let the other side push as much propaganda as they want. And but sadly, this is the times we live in, the social media times. And this is sometimes when I look at the media in China, and many of Westerners will say, oh, it's censored, there's no free speech. But they have a law here in China which forbids you to transmit or broadcast fake news. And I think at times like this, that is a very good rule, you know?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Unfortunately, with freedom of speech comes a lot of crap, truth be told.
Yeah,
But
I think so. I mean, Snarky, I grew up in an age where, you know, you trusted politicians, you trusted your state news. So I grew up with the BBC and I was very trustful of the BBC. And that opinion changed probably about, well, I'll be honest with you here. I was a supporter of the Iraq war.
yeah,
When that was happening and before it happened. And the reason I was a supporter of that is because I bought into and I was convinced by the UK government and the UK media that, you know, Saddam Hussein had literally got weapons that could attack the UK within a 40-minute time frame. And, you know, after that, and I was, they've actually not found any of these weapons of mass destruction. I started to do more and more research. And the more research I did, the more I saw that media and governments were lying to us. And, you know, then at the same similar sort of time, I was coming to China more and more. And I was also seeing that, hang on a minute, you know, what I'm seeing in the media in the UK is not what I'm experiencing here in China. And, you know, I've grown more and more sort of disillusioned with the UK media. And this is from a real world experience. And I find it amazing that, in fact, it's people in the UK who are being brainwashed, yet they think it's the Chinese people who are being brainwashed. And although I don't think Chinese media is perfect, I think it tells more factual information than the Western media does nowadays. But I do have some issues with Chinese media too.
yeah. Getting back to the whole thing with NATO, though, I heard that because NATO is on Russia's doorstep and Ukraine was effectively inviting NATO in, that's what prompted this. Some people are saying that it was basically because the fence was moving closer to Russia that Russia wanted to move the fence back.
I think there's a lot of truth in that. I mean, you know, they when the USSR broke up back in when it did, I can't remember how long ago that was, and when the Berlin Wall came down, Russia at that point were very concerned about their security, and there was a number of sort of pledges made. Now, I don't know whether anything was firmly put in writing, but as far as I'm aware and as far as I can read, that there were pledges given to Russia that NATO wouldn't expand eastwards.
Yeah, there were pledges, you know, in there, but that was part of, as I understand it, part of the 1994 Budapest Memorandum that Ukraine would basically sign a treaty of non-proliferation with their nuclear weapons, and that Russia would respect the independence and sovereignty of that, but also that NATO wouldn't get involved. And on the Russian side, they're saying that was, you know, that they broke good faith, and Ukraine is saying they broke good faith. And of course, everybody else is pointing at everybody else now as a result.
Yeah, I mean, I can't help but think, you know, all it would have needed is for the US and NATO to say, okay, Ukraine are not going to be allowed to join NATO. But for some reason, they didn't say that. Now, again, I have my sort of opinion on this, and I'll share that with you. And it's a bit anti-USA, but this is my opinion. My opinion is that the US wanted to break Europe away from Russia. Europe was moving closer and closer towards Russia. You know, they already opened Nord Stream 1, which was supplying a huge amount of gas.
Yeah, that's 30% of Russia's income is they're selling the natural gas.
Yeah, well, that's just from that pipeline, they earned over $700 million a day.
Yep.
Now that's a lot of money. Now, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, that was initiated not by Russia, that was initiated by Germany. And initially, Russia were very not interested in building it. But ever since they signed the agreement to build it, America have not been happy about that because they see it as drawing Europe closer to Russia and away from America. And so I think the Nord Stream 2 had quite a lot to do with it. And I think that I feel that to a point, the USA have achieved their goal now, which is to stop Nord Stream 2 and have sanctions imposed on Russia.
Yeah.
And I think to some extent, the US, along with NATO, used Ukraine as kind of a pawn. Now, there's people calling for that. Oh, we should US or NATO or the UK should send troops into Ukraine to help. Now, I actually think that is absolutely the worst thing that could happen. If ever they did that, that would be the start of a huge conflict, because Russia would then see that as the US and Europe directly at war with Russia.
Yep.
And I think that would just escalate into upper. And I actually think the US and the EU are aware of that fact. And I think that's why they've both stated they won't send troops there. Although I still think they are wrong to send more weapons to Ukraine, because that's just going to, prolong the fighting.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of questions about that. Of course, in all of this, they're saying basically, whether Ukraine was poised to east or west, that created the power vacuum. But yeah, sending more troops in doesn't help anything. That creates the question of how do we help? How could the average person help? What is the call to action on this?
I think as an average person, to be fair, there's not a huge amount that can be done. I mean, I think from an average person, the best they can do is help on a humanitarian level. But I think from a political point of view, I think politicians that are close to the Russian side and politicians that are close to the Ukraine side need to be urging them both to look at having a ceasefire and getting some negotiations going on some neutral ground. Now, I'm pretty sure that I know there's a lot of people out there saying, oh, China is supporting Russia. I think China do support Russia, but not from an invasion point of view. I don't think China support an invasion by Russia into Ukraine. I think they support them from a security point of view, and I think they understand Russia's concerns because they have similar concerns over the Taiwan issue.
Sure.
But I think that I would imagine that there's been some high-level negotiations gone on between Chinese and Russian diplomats saying, look, you need to do all you can to get some negotiations going, get some diplomatic negotiations going to stop. And I believe that Russia actually did pause, from what I understand, about 24 hours ago, because Zelensky suggested he wanted to meet. But then they felt that Zelensky was playing around, and they then sort of started up their action again. But I think if there was some serious discussion about having negotiations, I think that there would be a ceasefire. Whether that would hold or not is a different matter, but I think it's a step in the right direction. I think any other action is futile, really.
Yeah. Well, there are some, things that I've read some people can do. There's a couple NGO organizations that are assisting Ukrainians. I know even Google made that Ukrainian global task force where they're offering job opportunities to Ukrainian refugees, visa assistance, even relocation services. But I think one of the big things that people like you and I can do is obviously talk to representatives and get them to encourage the big guys just to get to the table and talk, rather than because once we send troops in, the genie is kind of already out of the bottle. and they're just gonna,
to a point. I just want to mention one thing on. There's been some sort of fundraising groups circulating on social media.
Yes.
And there's been some pretty high-profile accounts retweeting those, but I think people need to look very carefully at where that money's going. I was made aware yesterday there was a Twitter Spaces conversation where a lot of people involved were joining in, and a couple of members sort of raised the point that there was a couple of these fundraising organizations who were kind of not being very transparent about where the funds are going. There was actually a couple of them that were actually diverting some funds to these neo-Nazi groups. So just be very, very careful who you just check out. Nothing wrong with making a donation. There's going to be a huge humanitarian crisis. You're already seeing huge amounts of refugees now coming across the border into Poland, and I'm sure Moldova, Russia, a lot of Eastern Ukrainians are going into Russia, and I believe Russia are actually providing them with sort of money to equivalent of 1 month's salary when they enter. Now, I know that's not a lot of money, but it's better than nothing. But yeah, I think there will be a large humanitarian fallout, and I think it is up to, it would be responsible of many of these people who suggest they're supporting Ukraine and Ukrainians to donate some if they can. But as I say, be wary, check out who you're actually donating to. I mean, it might be better to sort of donate to some of the larger, well-known, more respected organizations in that. But again, that's just my opinion, but just check out who you're donating to.
Oh, definitely. Because if if you're donating to somebody wrong, you may be hurting the situation more than helping it.
Definitely.
Definitely. Well, as far as the situation is concerned now, you're under the opinion that sending more troops in is definitely a bad idea. We should contact our representatives. Is there anything else beyond praying to the Almighty? Is there anything else that you think that people could or should be doing?
Well, again, just pushing their politicians to work towards a diplomatic resolution. I find it a little bizarre that at the moment you've got the EU, you've got the US, and you've got the UK, and it seems to be a competition between the politicians of who can be the toughest. You have the US. Sort of announcing sanction, then the UK are trying to better it, and then the EU are trying to go, and I think it's a little bit ridiculous. It's like, they're trying to, it's like a competition who can be the toughest, and it's really not the time for that. It's the time for urging, Ukraine and Russia to stop and start negotiating, and keep negotiating until they can come to something that they can both agree on, get it signed. Part of the problem was the Minsk II agreement was in the air for 8 years because the NATO wouldn't compromise the slightest bit. And I guess Russia didn't compromise either, so it became to a stalemate. I felt Russia were backed into a corner, and they've done probably the only thing they thought was left. Now, that isn't a good thing.
True.
Any war is not a good thing, but I just feel something else I'd like to say as well, and this is kind of trying to put some nuance into the sort of narrative, is that I see the whole world are up in arms about what's happening here.
Yeah.
But yet we have NATO and the US have invaded many countries over the last years, and there seems to be far more reaction to this than there has ever been to other invasions, and I find that somewhat odd. I don't see countries sanctioning the US or the UK or European countries for invading Afghanistan and Libya and Syria and Iraq. But I see all of a sudden all these Western countries, and I would say it is Western countries. You know, we keep hearing this in the media that the whole world is sanctioning Russia. Well, it's not the whole world. That the Middle East are not sanctioning Russia. China are not sanctioning Russia. India are not sanctioning Russia. And these areas make up a huge amount of the world's population, far more than America and the EU, actually. You know, just China and India alone, who both abstained at the UN Security Council meeting, make up almost 3 billion people. I don't have the population of Europe off the top of my head, but I know the US is 300 and something million, right? 350 million.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Death made a comment here. He says that you're overlooking the fact that no neighbor on Russia's border has done anything to cost a Russian his life, and that's not aggression.
Well, the neo-Nazis, the Ukrainian neo-Nazis, have caused, you know, those areas of Donetsk. You know, they're seen as being Russian. They're ethnically Russian. They even in the Minsk agreement, those areas were given what's it called? Like, were allowed to be separate. So that's what Russia see when they're being attacked. They see it as Russians being attacked.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
So I think the biggest issue is the neo-Nazi movement in Ukraine, as far as I'm concerned. I think those have been the fuel behind the trouble in eastern Ukraine regions.
Yeah, well, I definitely agree that can be a problem. Of course, I mean, there's a lot of conflicts around the world. It's interesting. A lot of people focus on this one. And while I have to admit, it definitely is inspiring to see the Ukrainian president get out there with a rifle itself, I definitely think that we should have a lot more talking just to kind of get this thing settled down before it gets out of control.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know. I think the problem at the moment is you don't know what's truth, what's rumor, what's conspiracy coming out of what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, I heard stories yesterday or the day before that they were handing out sort of, you know, guns to civilians to fight out.
I heard that too.
That is just ridiculous. You know, these people won't stand a chance against a trained Russian army. You know, and if many of them get killed, will they then, you know, spin it into, oh, look, you know, Russia have slaughtered all these innocent civilians? You know, you have to be very, 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 very careful doing things like this, you know.
Yeah, you can bet that the media will definitely spin something like that. But I definitely think if people can check out who they're donating to before they donate, that's a great idea. Like I said, I know Google is offering a task force to help people on that. But right now, I think we just need to, you know, watch what we say, watch what we think, and definitely be praying for these good people.
Absolutely.
Do you have any other further thoughts on this before we wrap this up? Because I usually try to wrap this up around 10 or so.
Okay, so just one other thought. You mentioned about the amount of coverage it's getting. It is quite amazing that if you think that, you know, in the last week, Ukraine has got more coverage in the Western media than like Somalia and Yemen have got in the last 3 years. You know, and I find that kind of incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, my closing words really would be that I think all the politicians all around the world should be putting pressure on Russia and Ukraine to stop and negotiate, not in Ukraine, not in Russia, on some neutral territory. With
Hungary offered to host a peace talk.
Yeah, you know, one of these sort of countries. I mean, I think it would be. I don't know whether Hungary are part of NATO actually, but I think it wouldn't be good to do it in a NATO country. I think it needs to be a completely independent country. That could be Switzerland, maybe, or Finland. Neutral. Yeah, Switzerland's neutral, so there's a country in the geography which is neutral, or somewhere like not even maybe China, because China will be seen as being on the Russian side. Whether that's the case or not, they will be seen. I mean, I personally think I see China. They generally remain fairly neutral in most things around the world, to be fair. There will be some people argue against that, but that's the way I see it. They're not a generally aggressive nation at all. But I do think it would be very sensible to hold those talks in a neutral country.
Yeah, I agreed. And I agree with her saying, even though a lot of people would see China is on Russia's side and therefore wouldn't be seen as balanced necessarily.
As neutral, yeah. So I think China could play a role, but I think it definitely would be better to be a completely neutral country. I think Switzerland would be a good one, or I think Finland and Sweden maybe. I know there's a couple of Scandinavian countries that are not NATO members, although I think Finland have sort of made murmurs about joining, which I don't know too much about that, but I think they have made murmurs about joining.
Well, in the meantime, it seems like most of the world is going to adopt a wait and watch policy. A lot of people are saying they're standing with Ukraine, which doesn't really mean anything at all.
I'm sorry. I just want to butt in again here. I kind of get a bit annoyed when I see that these countries light up buildings in colours, and I see all these people on social media will change their avatar to Ukraine. We stand with Ukraine. Yeah. I can't help thinking, some of these people hadn't even heard of Ukraine 2 weeks ago. All of a sudden, they want to jump on a bandwagon. I'll be honest. I've been aware of the Ukraine Russia issue for some years, but I've really learned a huge amount in the last 10 days. I've spent hours every day reading information as much as I can, and not just reading it from one source, reading it from many sources to try and get a balanced view
from one source. Definitely,
because I feel you have sources which are very biased one way, you have sources which are very biased the other way. So it's really trying to draw your own opinion from reading both ends of the spectrum, really, and trying to build an opinion based on that.
Yeah, and if you go online, you can find articles from Reuters going all the way back to like 2015 on this. BuzzFeed's had articles going back all the way to 2014 on this. So there's a lot of different things one can do to educate themselves. And it's when you look at everything, it's not nearly as black and white as it seems. And yet the sad crux of it is, the sad thing is, we still have people who are caught in the middle of all of this. And that's the tragedy, I feel.
That is, I mean, I just reiterate what you've said. There's a lot of people out there who think that Russia a week ago decided, we're a bit pissed off, we're going to invade Ukraine, and there's been years and years and years and years of issues it's just that in the last week it's come to a head, and as you rightly say, it's not the politicians who suffer. It's not the rich people who suffer because they have enough money to get out of there. The people who suffer are the average people. Your average family with your 2 kids and your average sort of working people. They're the ones that suffer the most, and that's very, very sad and unfortunate.
Yeah, that's true. So. But Lucy says, I think the people that are standing with Ukraine are more against the acts of violence in general. That's probably true.
That is true, but how many people do you see with avatars and things saying we stand with Yemen, or we stand with Somalia, or we stand? There was a movement of that. I think when Iraq was invaded, but there's a lot of violence against people all around the world, but I don't see that many people on social media. I don't see many countries lighting up their buildings with Yemeni flag colors or Somalian flag colors or other countries.
Issue of the week, colors.
And I think a lot of this is perpetuated by the Western media, who are very on the side of the EU and the US here, and sort of discounting the other side altogether. And this, I'm not going to get into it now, but this leads me into how I feel the media are very controlled by governments and intelligence agencies. But that's for another video and another conversation.
True story. Bunny says, standing with Ukraine also means physical help, including relocation, jobs, place to live. It's about war, not just politics.
Absolutely. And I
story.
noticed that, I noticed that again, here, the UK, they light up buildings, they stand with Ukraine, but not letting any refugees in.
Yeah. That's the thing is, it's easy to say you stand with someone. It's a lot harder to take a family in your bedroom and, offer them a meal and a place to sleep. So
you need to put your money as far as the UK are concerned, they need to put their money where their mouth is, not just make, I see our foreign minister is a woman named Liz Truss, and she's used Twitter as a photo opportunity in her eventual bid to be the prime minister because, Boris Johnson's sort of ratings are on the floor. And she's tweeting all the time with nice little posy photos by Ukrainian flags, and I'm all empty words, yet they haven't accepted refugees, and what can you say?
Yep. And say put your money where your mouth is. Well, hey,
absolutely.
I really appreciate you joining us, Lee, and I want to thank everyone else for joining us, and we're gonna go ahead and sign off.
Appreciate it.
We'll catch you guys next week right here in the Snark Lounge.
Take care.
Take care, guys. Sardines. Bye-bye, guys. And we're clear.